In 1846 BCE, a scribe named Epic recorded something on 3 clay tablets that was neither a prayer nor a trade ledger. It was a detailed account of the moment a council of beings decided that humanity was not worth saving. Those tablets were buried for millennia beneath the ruins of Nineveh, unearthed in the 19th century, and decoded at the British Museum. Today, they sit behind glass in London and New York, published and available to any scholar on Earth. But most people who walk past them have no idea what they actually say, and this is why modern science makes it impossible to ignore. The text is known as the Atrahasis Epic. It is one of the oldest written stories in human history. The earliest surviving copy dates to the reign of King Saduqa around 1646 BCE. In 1965, scholars Wilfrid Lambert and Alan Millard published the first comprehensive English translation, finally giving the world access to the full narrative. What they found was extraordinary. The tablets describe a hierarchical civilization of beings called the Anunnaki, the great gods of ancient Mesopotamia. Below them served a lesser class called the Igigi, divine laborers forced to dig canals, maintain irrigation systems, and build the infrastructure of the world. The opening lines describe how the Igigi toiled for thousands of years. They dredged riverbeds, they hauled earth, they worked without rest. And then they broke. The Igigi burned their tools and surrounded the dwelling of the chief god Enlil in what the text describes as a full revolt. It was a divine labor strike. To resolve the crisis, the god Enki proposed a radical solution. A new species would be created from clay, mixed with the blood of a sacrificed god. That species was humanity. The tablets are explicit about the purpose. Humans were fashioned as replacement workers, designed to carry the burden that the lesser gods refused to bear any longer. But the story does not end with creation. It escalates. Humanity multiplied. Settlements grew along the banks of the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Cities rose from the floodplains of ancient Mesopotamia. According to the tablets, the noise of human civilization began to disturb the gods. The Akkadian word in the text is hubaru. It does not mean a single shout or a sudden moment of chaos. It means a deep, persistent, building disturbance. Something that accumulates over time, something that grows louder and more unbearable until it can no longer be endured. The god Enlil could not rest. He demanded silence. When silence did not come, he decided to reduce the human population. He did not begin with a flood. The tablets describe a deliberate sequence of escalating catastrophes, each one more severe than the last. First came plague, and bodies filled the streets of ancient settlements. Then came drought. Rivers dried. Crops withered in fields of dust. Then famine. People starved. Families collapsed. Entire populations were hollowed out. Each time, the god Enki detected what was coming before it arrived. Each time, he warned a man named Atrahasis, whose name means extra wise. Atrahasis organized prayers and rituals that temporarily reversed each catastrophe. And each time, Enlil grew angrier. Enki had broken ranks. He had gone against a plan that all the gods had agreed to. The tension between Enlil and Enki is the engine of the entire narrative. One god wanted humanity erased. The other believed humanity was still worth protecting. That conflict reached its breaking point in the final act. Enlil convened the divine assembly. He gathered the Anunnaki and presented his case. Humanity had become intolerable. The disturbances would not stop. Every attempt to reduce the population had been undermined by Enki. Enlil demanded a final solution. A flood would wipe humanity from the surface of the earth entirely. The assembly deliberated, and the majority agreed. But Enlil added one more condition. Enki would be bound by an oath. He would swear not to warn any human of what was coming. The plan would proceed in total secrecy. Enki resisted. He challenged the assembly. He asked why he should use his power against his own people. But the oath was enforced. The divine council voted. They decided humanity was not worth saving. Then, they did something remarkable. Before the floodwaters rose, the Anunnaki departed. They ascended above the destruction. They positioned themselves beyond the reach of the catastrophe they had authorized. They watched from a place of safety as the waters consumed everything below. They were not caught off guard. They were not victims. They detected the event before it began, and they left. Meanwhile, Enki found a way around the oath without technically breaking it. He stood beside the reed wall of the house where Atrahasis slept. He spoke not to the man, but to the wall itself. He instructed the wall to relay a message. Tear down the house, build a vessel, seal it with pitch, load your family and your animals aboard. The warning was delivered through an indirect channel, passed through a physical medium as though it were a coded transmission. Atrahasis obeyed. He built the vessel. He sealed it. He loaded everything aboard. The flood came. The world was destroyed. And when the waters receded, only Atrahasis and those on the vessel survived. The gods, watching from above, realized what they had done. They wept. They had destroyed their own labor force. They had eliminated the source of their offerings and sustenance. The tablets describe genuine regret among the divine assembly. Enlil, confronted with the consequences, eventually accepted that humanity had a purpose. The survivors were allowed to continue, but the pattern had been established. A disturbance was detected. A warning was issued to a single individual. The gods evacuated. Destruction arrived. Whether this pattern has any basis in physical reality is a question that now has a measurable answer. In 2021, a team of researchers published a landmark study in the journal PLOSONE. They analyzed infrasonic signals recorded before more than 100 strong earthquakes around the world. What they found was striking. Major seismic events emit low-frequency sound waves hours to days before the ground actually ruptures. These waves operate at frequencies near 1,000th of a hertz, far below the threshold of human hearing, which cuts off at around 20 hertz. You cannot perceive these signals. They pass through your body without triggering any sensation. But they are measurable. They carry specific information about the developing fracture, the stress building at the fault line, and the elastic properties of the surrounding rock. The researchers described these infrasonic precursors as having a stable timescale. The signals are consistent. They appear before earthquakes of every significant magnitude. They are, by definition, warnings. The earth whispers before it screams. And standing on the surface, you would hear nothing at all. But infrasound is only the beginning. The signal does not stop at the surface. It rises. In 2019, a team of scientists published their findings in Scientific Reports, part of the Nature research family. They had analyzed 4.7 years of electron density and magnetic field data collected by the European Space Agency's Swarm satellite constellation orbiting the Earth. What they discovered was that clear concentrations of electromagnetic anomalies appeared in the ionosphere from more than 2 months to just days before major earthquakes. The Earth was broadcasting a signal into space, and it was doing so weeks before the ground moved. The physical model describing this process is called the lithosphere-atmosphere-ionosphere coupling framework. It traces a chain reaction that begins deep underground. Stress accumulates along a fault line. Radon gas is released from fractured rock. That radon ionizes the surrounding air. The ionization triggers thermal anomalies at the surface and changes in local atmospheric conductivity. These disturbances propagate upward through the atmosphere and into the ionosphere, where they alter electron density and magnetic field readings detectable by satellites. A separate review published in Frontiers in Earth Science noted that while ionospheric anomalies are frequently observed roughly 5 days before major shallow earthquakes, they remain a subject of intense scientific debate and are not yet a reliable, universally accepted method for prediction. The signal begins underground. It rises through the air. It reaches the edge of space. And none of it is visible or audible to a human being standing on the surface. Now consider what lives on that surface alongside us. In 2011, motion-triggered cameras installed throughout Yanachaga National Park in Peru began recording something unusual. Over a period of 23 days before a magnitude 7 earthquake struck the Contamana region, animal activity in the park declined dramatically. Birds, mammals, and reptiles all went quiet. They vanished from their normal ranges. By 24 hours before the quake, the animals had completely vacated the area. This was not limited to a single species. The steep decline was observed in small rodents, medium-sized mammals, and larger animals alike. The entire forest went silent. Researchers found that nighttime ionospheric perturbations detected by radio-sounding equipment appeared above the earthquake zone, starting 2 weeks before the event. The animals were responding to the same invisible signal that satellites were measuring from orbit. This was not the first time such behavior had been observed. In 1975, in the Chinese city of Haicheng, animals across the region behaved in ways that alarmed local authorities. Snakes crawled out of the frozen ground in the middle of winter. Dogs howled without provocation. Horses refused to enter their stables. Officials took the warnings seriously. They ordered a partial evacuation of the city. When a magnitude 7.3 earthquake struck, thousands of lives were saved because someone paid attention to what the animals already knew. Records stretching back to 373 BCE describe similar events. In the Greek city of Hellice, residents reported that rats, weasels, snakes, and centipedes abandoned their burrows and fled to open ground days before a catastrophic earthquake destroyed the city entirely. Animals with broader sensory ranges have been reading these signals for millions of years. They detect acoustic waves below 50 Hz. They sense minute electrical field changes. They respond to chemical cues released from stressed rock deep below the surface. And when the signal reaches a critical threshold, they do exactly what the Anunnaki did in the tablets. They leave. The only beings who consistently fail to perceive the warning are humans. Return now to the Atrahasis tablets. The text says the noise of humanity disturbed the gods. Scholars have traditionally interpreted Hubaru as a metaphor for overpopulation or moral corruption. But consider what that word actually describes. A persistent, escalating disturbance. Something that builds over time. Something that grows louder until it becomes an unbearable crescendo. This is functionally identical to how geophysicists describe the precursor phase of a major seismic event. Stress builds along a fault. Microfractures propagate through rock. Infrasonic waves intensify. Electromagnetic anomalies multiply in the ionosphere. The signal gets louder and louder until the fault finally ruptures. The tablets describe beings who detected this crescendo before humans could. They deliberated. They evacuated upward. They watched from above as the catastrophe unfolded below. A disturbance is detected by entities with superior perception. A warning is passed to a single individual. That individual acts. Everyone else perishes. Now expand the time frame. Approximately 12,800 years ago, something catastrophic struck the Northern Hemisphere. Researchers studying this period have found layers of sediment across North America, Europe, and parts of the Middle East containing unusually high concentrations of platinum, iridium, microspherules, melt glass, and nanodiamonds. In 2024, a team from the University of South Carolina published findings confirming the presence of shock-fractured quartz at multiple sites dating to this exact boundary layer. The proposed cause is a fragmented comet estimated at 100 kilometers wide, breaking into thousands of pieces before detonating in the atmosphere. The resulting airburst would have generated temperatures exceeding 2,000 degrees Celsius, igniting wildfires across entire continents. Megafauna vanished. The Clovis archaeological culture disappeared. Global temperatures plummeted into a near-glacial period lasting more than 1,000 years. It is important to state clearly that this hypothesis remains actively debated. Many scientists have challenged the evidence and the conclusions. But a 2023 review published in Science Open noted that dozens of independent studies have since confirmed impact markers at younger Dryas boundary sites around the world. Something happened 12,800 years ago, and every major flood myth on Earth dates to roughly this same window. The Atrahasis became the foundation for countless stories that followed. A lost intermediate version was paraphrased in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where the survivor becomes a man named Utnapishtim. The Hebrew Bible preserved the story through Noah. Greek tradition recorded Deucalion. Hindu scripture tells of Manu. Indigenous oral histories from the Pacific Northwest to the Amazon basin contain flood narratives with the same structural elements. A warning from beings with greater perception than humans. A chosen survivor who builds a vessel. Animals preserved aboard, a world destroyed by water, a new beginning from the wreckage. These civilizations were separated by oceans and millennia. They had no known contact with one another, yet they preserved the same story with the same architecture. The tablets of the Atrahasis rest today behind temperature-controlled glass in London and New York. Visitors walk past them every day without stopping. Most do not know what the cuneiform pressed into that ancient clay actually says. Epic Aya carved those symbols 3,700 years ago in a language that was already dying when the Parthenon was built. He recorded a story about beings who could detect what humans could not. Beings who sensed an invisible signal before the destruction arrived. Beings who gathered, deliberated, and chose to leave before the waters rose. 3,700 years later, satellites orbiting the Earth are measuring exactly the kind of signals he described. Infrasonic waves ripple through rock before every major earthquake. Electromagnetic anomalies climb through the atmosphere and reach the ionosphere weeks before the ground shakes. Animals across entire ecosystems go silent and flee. The signal is real. It precedes every major geological event. Instruments detect it. Animals detect it. The tablets told us what they contain. They have been telling us since the day they were carved. The question that remains is what those ancient scribes were actually describing, and whether we are any closer to hearing what they heard.